Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alex Cuesta Daily Show. It is Friday, January 28th of 2022, and I'm extremely happy that you are here to join me on another fun episode where I dig up some more fun articles, read through them, give you my opinions, and you enjoy them, you disagree, but you're here to listen anyway, and that's what's important to me. Before we get going on anything, really need everyone to go like, subscribe, follow, wherever you're listening to, wherever you are, rate us 5 stars, spread word of mouth on what's going on here, because what's going on here is fun. What's going on here is good. And I think it's necessary for, people like me, common people, normal people. Maybe I'm not normal. I'm not normal at all, but common people. I'm a common folk. The common people to give their voices out like this. Podcasting is a remarkable thing. Any of us can do it. And I think that it's necessary for more of us to get our voices out and try and defend what we think is our freedoms and go against things that we think are wrong, whether, we end up being wrong or right. At least we could say we tried in certain ways. And, this is a pretty nonviolent way. We're not like the left. We don't believe that words are violence. So, I'm doing this in a nonviolent way. So I'm enjoying every moment of this. I hope you are, as you're on the other side there. But we're going to get going. We're going to jump right into the news. I have to give an update. Episode 10 of the Daily Show, I did the piece on ID.me being used by the IRS. We have an update today on that. This isn't going to be the article. It's just a quick aside and an update. Today, Megan Henney of Fox Business wrote a piece, Treasury reconsiders IRS's use of facial recognition company ID.me. Now, just a general synopsis of the article, they are reconsidering it because of the LinkedIn post that the owner, Blake Hall, I think I recognize that. I'm half reading as I'm going. I talked about this yesterday about how he came out with the LinkedIn post saying that no, they don't use one-to-one. They use one-to-many facial recognition going through government databases. When in an interview, he said, no, we don't do that. We only used one-to-one to try and make himself sound safer. So there's a lot of complaints. There's a lot of pushback against the IRS, it seems, internally, externally, from advocate groups and things like that, to move away from this company and disassociate, which is good news in the long run. I mean, in the short run. Good news in the short run, because hopefully ID.me is out of there. And maybe the IRS and the federal government can get a little smarter and not use them or use anything like them with the facial recognition or any of this third-party bullshit. And hopefully this wakes up the 27 states that are working with them to kind of back away, because this guy's a liar. And he continues backpedaling. So this is good news. The article painstakingly went out of its way a few times to say, you do not have to get one of these. You do not have to make a profile in order to file your taxes or pay for your into your tax returns if you have to pay in if you're not getting a return. You did have to have one of these on beginning of summer 2022. You did have to get one of these ID.me accounts to access a child tax credit update portal, check online accounts, get their tax transcript, receive an identity protection PIN, or view an online payment agreement. This is also from the article. It's right in there, so I'm not just making that up. But you don't have to have one if you're going to pay the IRS. That's hilarious to me. If you're going to pay us, we don't give a shit who you are. We don't need your identity. We don't need to confirm your identity. Just pay up the money. But if you're potentially getting money doled out, or you want to look at documentation, third party, we have to get all your information in one place. We want a selfie of you. We may even ask for your credit because, God forbid, the person on the other side isn't who they say they are. But if you're giving us money, we don't give a fuck who you are. Just keep giving us money. So I found that absolutely hilarious that the IRS is like, where if you need to file your taxes or you need to pay tax, into the IRS or state, you don't have to have an ID.me account. Like, thanks, guys. Thanks. We appreciate it. If we're going to pay you, you don't care. If we're trying to get money back, we need to put all of our information out there to a third party. Hopefully that's going away. Treasury is reconsidering it. So it is good news on that front. Wanted to give the update. I'm going to keep tracking this ID.me stuff because to me, it's a pretty important topic, arguably one of the most important things going on. If you want to know why, go back and listen to episode 10, because that was kind of my whole entire breakdown of this and why I believe that anything like this third party, it doesn't have to be ID.me. If they use something else, they're creating a digital passport, and that's nothing that we want to be involved with. It's vaccine passports on steroids because it will include your vaccination statuses. But that's all there. Was just providing an update. Anyone that's keeping up with this, hopefully you appreciate that update. But if not, again, go back and listen to episode 10. Vaccine passports may not be happening, but digital passports are here. If the state governments and the federal government are willing to go this far, because this is already being implemented at the state level at 27 different states just to get your unemployment, and the federal government was willing to use it before all this pushback happened, before their idiot CEO gave an interview and blew it all up. We'll see how this goes, but we just need to keep our eyes peeled now for anything like this coming out, because this is bad news if they try to either keep going with ID.me or go to another group, because there are other third parties that do a similar, if not the same thing. So we're keeping track of that. We will go on to that. But now on to the story of the day. It is about Justin Trudeau and our friendly neighbors to the north, the Canadians. It was written earlier today at 2:29 p.m. This has updated at 6:09, so there's things going on. I'll read you the title, it's just a Canadian press staff. They don't give an actual aggregate to who wrote this. Let me scroll all the way down to the bottom. Nope. They just Canadian press. So no, don't know the actual writer. It's probably a team deal. Trudeau concerned trucker convoy converging on Parliament Hill could turn violent. So just a quick background. I don't know if they give a big, nice background here. There's a bunch of truckers in Canada that are driving to do a protest this week on Parliament Hill because they're tired of vaccine mandates. They're tired of the authoritarianism of Justin Trudeau and his regime over there. They're tired of all that stuff. They want to live free, and they're being labeled, like they do in the United States. If you're for freedom right now, you're anti-vax, you're anti-science. It's all the same shit over there. A lefty is a lefty is a lefty is a lefty. Doesn't matter where they're from. They all suck. But that's what they're claiming about this, and disregarding the fact that they don't put it in this article, but if the right over there is anything like the right in the United States, and we are very similar, we're simpatico and similar with each other in Canada up there. Yes, I said Canada. It sounds so much better in Canada, but we're similar. And if that's a sense, there's probably a ton of vaccinated people in that group for this protest. That's what they always leave out about these. A lot of people protesting for freedom did get the vaccines, probably even got boosted, but they just want freedom. They don't want to be told they have to do this shit anymore. So let's go ahead with the article. Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's concerned about the potential for violence during this weekend's planned protest on Parliament Hill by truckers and others joining the crowd to vent their anger about public health restrictions that combat COVID-19. They should put allegedly combat COVID-19. Because there's no proof that these public health restrictions are successfully combating it. So it should be allegedly. Let's keep going. Quote, "Of course, I'm concerned," Trudeau said in an interview Friday with the Canadian press. "A number of people are there without wanting to incite violence, but there are going to be, as we've heard, a small group of people who are posing a threat to themselves, to each other, to Canadians." So listen right there to Trudeau. Yeah, most of them are peaceful, but there are going to be people that are violent there. And that's kind of like general for all big things. We didn't catch any leaders saying this during a lot of the Black Lives Matter riots that kind of took over the world for a little while there. We didn't see anybody saying this on the left. They were saying they're venting their frustrations, and they apologized for people burning down cities, destroying cars, destroying livelihoods, even some deaths. They downplayed in this stuff. So we didn't hear any of this shit leading up to these protests, or they were closing down cities at night and telling people to avoid their own places, stay inside. If you lived in a city, especially in Minnesota and Minneapolis, you were sheltering in your house. And if you had kids, you were probably scared to death that these morons wouldn't come into the suburbs or into your area where you live. So it's always funny to hear when leftists talk about a planned protest of people that are talking about freedom. And you'll see they kind of talk that freedom's a buzzword at some point in this article. But people that are asking for freedom and to end mandates that are going to be violent. A very, very, very public protest is going to be violent. Let's continue. Ottawa police have warned of the potential for violence by extremists who've joined, or in some cases helped organize, the truck convoy that began converging on the country's capital Friday. So let's pick this apart real quick. Extremists that have joined and in some cases have helped organize, Ottawa police have warned. They don't have a citation here. They don't have anything to click. I would have loved to have click on that. But since they're making the claim, it's the onus is on them to back this up. To me, unless they're backing up this claim with some sort of source click or things like that, it's probably complete bullshit just to gaslight. So just always beware when you're reading things like that. When they say, Ottawa police, so-and-so, this have warned for potential violence, that's a general warning when large protests happen. Police always are ready. They always have some small force at any of these massive protests because there is always a chance for violence. And it's not always necessary by extremists. Some people get caught up in the moment or are just absolute morons. And to say that some extremists helped organize, I don't know the evidence for that. There's probably a chance that that's true. But again, there is nothing to link here that says, yes, they are whatchamacallit. They're definitely here. They're definitely that. There's coverage on the side left here. It says complete coverage, but those links need to be in there. I'm not going to go do that type of research. If you're the journalist, you should be doing that research and providing it to me. Let's continue. The so-called, quote, Freedom Convoy has been billed as a protest against a federally imposed vaccine mandate on cross-border truckers, even though planning for the event began before police was established. Guarantee that is one reason why, and they're conflating it. So obviously this piece is definitely being written from the left, and it's concerning because it's the Canadian press staff. So these people are claiming to speak for Canada, but they're only speaking from the left. Let's go. While key organizers have said violence won't be tolerated, far-right extremists and white nationalists have latched onto it, with some calling for, quote, bullets or a massive revolution or a riot akin to insurrectionists who stormed the U.S. Capitol a year ago. So let's go there. Massive revolution, that's not language of the right. So anyone joining a protest that's supposed to be on the right, screaming for massive revolution, is on the left. So, and when you talk about white nationalists are leftists. So that would make sense if a white nationalist is screaming for a massive revolution. So that would make sense if they end up there. Calling for bullets, people, we'll see where these come from. I don't agree with any of it. I think it is wrong. It should be condemned. But with the way they're framing this here is absolute nonsense. It's the gaslighting words that you see from the left all the time. And then saying to akin to the insurrectionists who stormed the U.S. Capitol a year ago, it's a good thing they didn't put their name on this, whoever wrote this, because I'd be ripping them apart because they're fucking idiots. There wasn't an insurrection. That didn't happen. It was not an insurrection. It was an absolute stupid fucking riot. But when police are moving barricades, opening doors, letting people in, there's people inciting, go in, be violent, this and that. When there have been 400 plus, not protests, but rallies and things like that were held by Donald Trump, and none of them were violent then. But this one just happens to get violent. No, they weren't insurrectionists, and there were no weapons. So shut the fuck up about the insurrection. I'm so tired of reading that nonsense. It was not an insurrection. Let's continue. Quote, the problem is that it has morphed into something a lot larger than it doesn't represent what the vast majority of truckers are going through, or indeed the vast majority of Canadians perspective on this, unquote, Trudeau said. Now, of course, Trudeau would say that because he won another election in 2021, and he believes he has a mandate to talk for all of Canada, and he's just neglecting that the small pocket, forgetting that he represents this group as well. I love when leaders like that talk like this, that they don't represent what we view. No, you represent them. You work for them. So you should, instead of doing this type of shit and creating an us versus them like Trudeau is doing, he should be talking to these people. And it goes the same with Joe Biden. It goes the same with any leader, left or right. If you disagree with them, fine. but denigrating them in public does not help. It only makes it further divide, which again, we can go into the conspiracy. That's exactly what these type of people want. Leaders like Trudeau and things want, and a lot of world leaders want, because the us versus them stuff is popular and it keeps them in power in all ways. Let's keep going. Quote, Canadians are not represented by this very troubling, small, but very vocal minority of Canadians who are lashing out at science, at government, at society, at mandates, and at public advice, end quote. So look at Trudeau touching on all the stuff that the leftists love to touch on there, lashing out at science. What science? What science are we talking about here? They love to use that term, lashing out at science, like it's a concrete thing. Science is not concrete. Science is always changing. And we've seen that this virus has changed, and they've been wrong a ton on a lot of shit going on with this virus, including vaccines. If you're vaccinated, you can't transmit it. Bullshit. If you have a vaccine, you're very unlikely to get it. Omicron is called bullshit on that as well. So that phrase throwing around is ridiculous. At government, in Canada, their freedoms are a lot less than ours in the United States. So maybe because they're a socialist nation. That plays off as a democratic representative thing. So yes, at society, there you go. Speaking for a society like that, yeah, it's a leftist term there. At mandates, fuck yeah, they're coming out at mandates. Mandates suck, especially these types. And public health advice, yeah, sure, that's a government thing. So you're just conflating two things at the same time. Let's keep going. A lot of anger is directed personally at Trudeau, with many supporters of the convoy displaying signs and flags emblazoned with expletives against the prime minister. Some have called for Trudeau to be tried for treason or to be beaten up. Normal if you're a leader. And here's a quote from Trudeau. It doesn't worry me that it's personal. That's sort of what you sign up for when you run for office to a certain extent. You know there's going to be lots of people who disagree with you and are going to express that disagreement. That comes with the territory, he said. But threats of violence shouldn't come with the territory for anyone who steps up to serve, whether it's as a politician or as a local representative or even as a public health official or a doctor. That doesn't have a place. Again, they talk out of both sides of their mouth. You hear them very rarely condemn threats of violence against people on the right. I mean, when you're calling people on the right Nazis and white supremacists, you are almost inviting people to be violent to them, because those stem up a lot of emotions from everybody, because Nazis were terrible. White supremacists are some of the biggest fucking idiots on the planet. So when you sit there and you allow that to happen without calling it back and saying, hey, cut that out, these people are not like those who committed the atrocities in Nazi Germany. Yeah, you don't have the right to say that then. You don't have the right to say that because you're not doing your part. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth, which, again, Justin Trudeau, leftists, love to do. They love wordplay. Let's keep going. The Parliament precinct has been effectively shut down for the weekend. Members of Parliament warned that some people are trying to extend the protests to their homes and constituency offices have been given tips on how to stay safe. That they're worried about it going to their homes and constituency offices when all we see are protests that end up at the homes of mayors and people on the right. And even, we saw Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema being harassed in the United States. Like, it's such a clown show. It's such a clown show that they're so scared. They're so scared. The big bad people that want freedom are going to be mean to us. Stop it. Let's continue. Organizers have crafted a memorandum of understanding demanding that the appointed Senate and the Governor General effectively usurp the authority of the elected government and do away with all vaccine mandates and other public health restrictions, a constitutional impossibility. I don't know enough about the Canadian system to know that, so I'm not going to really opine on that one. But whenever you see a leftist organization say something like a constitutional impossibility, they more than likely don't know what their constitution says because they're stupid. So there probably is a chance that there is, but yeah, it won't happen. Let's continue. Trudeau said it's typical of, quote, conspiracy theories that spread misinformation and disinformation about the pandemic and how democratic governments work. Oh, please, Justin Trudeau, tell us how democratic governments work. Please. They do, quote, a very good job of seeming reasonable or sounding legitimate by using fake experts or pseudo-legalistic language, and unfortunately are just clever enough to bring in people who are otherwise reasonable to say, oh, that sounds really official. and they get roped in by terrible misinformation. So all Justin Trudeau just said there is by using fake experts, aka people other scientists and experts that disagree with our scientists and experts, and pseudo legalistic language. Other people that read the same exact law, have the same exact law degrees, but are reading the law in a different way. All of a sudden, again, you disagree with us, you're 100% wrong. Repressive tolerance. Make sure that the right is always denigrated. Make sure that they're always sound like, call them wrong, concrete. Not that they're misled, not that we disagree. No, it's wrong. It's misinformation. It's incorrect. It's dangerous. They use all these sorts of buzzwords because it's what drives them. You'll never hear a leftist say, no, we just disagree on that. No, what are they saying? It's misinformation. It's disinformation. It's dangerous. So always keep on the lookout for that type of stuff. He noted that the protesters used the appealing rallying cry of freedom, because it's a thing, Justin Trudeau. You don't like it, but it's real. We're going to keep going. But he said, the most important freedom is freedom for Canadians who are doing the right things to be able to get through and beyond this pandemic. Freedom to see their loved ones, freedom to be able to know that their kids are safe as they go to school, that our businesses are going to be able to get through this pandemic. And the way to do that is to trust in science and follow public health rules and get vaccinated. That's what standing up for your rights and freedoms look like. So let's break that down, because this guy, he's hilarious. When you hear this type of stuff, you just gotta know that these people either don't know what it is or don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in it. And again, Canada's a different place. I'll talk about their basically freedom of speech clause. It's not a freedom of speech clause. So if these people are doing what they do, and people in Canada protest at their own risk. I'll say that they don't have the same freedoms we have in the United States to do these types of things. But let's go in this. Doing the right things to be able to get through and beyond this pandemic. What are doing the right things? What are doing the right things? Putting on a cloth mask that doesn't work, or a surgical mask that doesn't work, or a terribly fitting N95 that also doesn't work. Getting the vaccinations that were, again, I'm not against the vaccinations. They do a decent job of keeping people out of the hospital for severe cases. I will say that. But when we see Omicron is really just overturning everything that they're saying about this, and everything they're saying that is the tired old rhetoric has not been updated for this, because it's just a sign that they want to continue to have power. And especially when other countries around the world are relinquishing all of their powers as a government, and we're seeing language like this from Justin Trudeau and even President Biden, it tells you a lot about where they really stand. Let's continue. Freedom to see their loved ones, freedom to be able to know that their kids are safe as they go back to school. So freedom to see their loved ones, that was already a thing, Justin Trudeau. That's a thing already. We're allowed to see our loved ones, regardless of what the fucking government says. And freedom to be able to know that their kids are safe as they go to school. The kids were always safe. Study upon study upon study upon study upon study has said that kids are not major transmitters. Kids don't get majorly sick from this. And if you look at the rate of death around the world, and even the rate of contraction of known cases where they're showing symptoms, they are the lowest by far. So that's a bold-faced lie on both of those. And that our businesses are going to be able to get through this pandemic. They'll only get through it if you get the hell out of the way. They don't want small businesses to succeed, especially in these nations that are ruled by lefties. They're the enemies of small business. They are the parties of big business because that's their donor class. Don't let any lefty ever tell you that they're not the party of big business. They are, and they always have been. And again, when he goes back to, and the way to do that is to trust in science, follow public health rules, and get vaccinated. Oh my God, trust in science. Again, using that term again, science like it's a concrete thing coming from someone that either doesn't understand science or hopes that you're ignorant enough to not understand what it is. That's their goal with that one. Public health rules, listen to the government. That's all that says, just listen to the government and get vaccinated. Listen, I have no problem if you want to get vaccinated as a person, do whatever the fuck you want. Just don't bother me. Let's keep going. Trudeau acknowledged everyone is frustrated with the pandemic, which has dragged on for almost 2 years, but most are, quote, not taken to the streets with the level of vitriol that, quite frankly, doesn't represent the vast, vast, vast number of Canadians out there who have demonstrated a sense of unity or of being there for each other that is remarkable and exemplary on the world stage. So again, downplaying a group of people that want freedom and saying that it's a small but vocal minority, I guarantee that's not true, because there's a lot of freedom-minded individuals in Canada as well. There's a lot of good people in Canada that are freedom-minded, especially there's good leadership talking and saying a lot of things in Canada. Guys like Viva Frei, guys like Jordan Peterson that are very vocal about being free. And two guys that I want to say politically are not on the same side. Jordan Peterson, they call him a rightist because he's a right-leaning guy because he talks about freedom. But Jordan Peterson's not on the right. Viva Frei is on the right. He is a right-leaning guy. But they both agree on freedom. You're on the wrong side if the word freedom is a bad buzzword to you. You're on the wrong side of this. If when you hear someone talk about freedom, you automatically think that they're bad. You are on the wrong side of history. Let's keep going. He repeatedly stressed that almost 90% of Canadians, along with almost 90% of truckers, have done the right thing by getting vaccinated to protect themselves and their loved ones. Again, opining here. This isn't journalism, Canadian press. Have done the right thing. That's your fucking opinion. It doesn't belong in journalism. We're going to keep going. Quote, people need to know that this protest doesn't represent truckers and it doesn't represent Canadians. It represents a very small, very angry group of Canadians who are really trying to lash out. Again, Justin Trudeau, it's your job to represent them. It's your job to represent them. And you're not doing it by calling them out like this. But again, you don't want to be a leader to everybody in Canada. You want to be a leader only to those who bow. It's authoritarianism up there right now. We're going to keep going. That's why he said the country needs reasonable, responsible leadership that is focused on keeping Canadians safe. He slammed conservative leader Erin O'Toole for putting forward as his priority accommodating the unvaccinated. So putting forward his priority as accommodating people that Justin Trudeau is trying to set aside and make second-class citizens, that's a bad thing. Trying to help them out as well. Again, I don't agree with making one group a priority, but if your leader of your country is leaving them out, then what choice does he have? Let's keep going here. O'Toole, who intends to meet with some of the truckers, has called for calm and a peaceful protest. He has also denounced people involved in the convoy who are espousing racist and extremist ideas. But he has not called out any of the MPs, including Deputy Leader Candice Bergen, predecessor Andrew Scheer, and financial critic Pierre Poilievre, I don't know Canadian words, French things, who have given full-throated support to the convoy and joined in accusing Trudeau of being a threat to Canadians' liberty. So wait, why? Why should he call them out for giving full-throated support? Why should he call them out? And O'Toole didn't call them out. O'Toole called out racist and extremism. That is not calling out the convoy. And the fact that they've given their full-throated backing to freedom and to fighting the mandates, which is proper, correct, and their right to do. Let's keep going. Quote, the fact that Mr. O'Toole is looking for political advantage is really not the kind of responsible leadership that Canadians need. Blackface Justin Trudeau said, because the man has worn blackface twice and gotten away with it. You stupid Canadians that keep on voting him in 3 times now. Anyway, I digress. So update on what's going on too. Justin Trudeau has bunkered into his house because he said someone in his family, I think his kids, got COVID-19. And even though he tested negative, God, he was exposed. So now he has to not go to work this weekend, not go to Parliament Hill, and avoid the scrutiny of his people, the Canadian people that he was elected to lead, avoid the scrutiny of some of his constituents. Even going to the point of, like they said, shutting down the area. They have basically closed a bridge leading into the Parliament Hill area, into the government area. Only 2 lanes are going to be open on a major bridge that gets them in there. And it's such a ridiculous thing what this man is doing. He's a clown. Justin Trudeau is an absolute clown, an authoritarian clown. I did mention talking about kind of their First Amendment, their freedom of speech rules over in Canada, because it's different. The people that speak out in Canada against things going on in government are doing so at their own risk, because we have our First Amendment. Our First Amendment's absolute. Freedom of speech is absolute here. Now, the left tries to censor it. They, and they work with private organizations that are on the super left, and, they try to censor it. We saw that with the campaign to combat different opinions on COVID-19 and mandates and treatments and things like that. We saw that going on with YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Anyone that doesn't think they're working with the left and the government is out of their fucking minds. Google was in Capitol Hill all the time. They work directly with the government. Google does work directly with the government on a lot of different things. So they were working with the government to censor. That is beyond not, there's no document saying, yes, this absolutely is a thing, but you're an idiot if you don't think so. But let's talk about Canada for a second. Canada's freedom of expression. This is coming from Wikipedia. And my rule with Wikipedia is if it's something that's leftist in any way, it's going to be correct because they love putting out there how awesome they are at the left. So this is Canada's socialism. So they live in a socialist country. So it is kind of leftist over there. So this is probably right. So freedom of expression is protected as a fundamental freedom by Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Charter also permits the government to enforce reasonable limits. This is where it's different here. Hate speech, obscenity, and defamation are common categories of restricted speech in Canada. So let's look there, and we're going to scroll down to the reasonable limits. I'm going to read you this because that gives a lot of leeway to the government to do some shit. Freedom of expression in Canada is not absolute. Section 1 of the Charter allows the government to pass laws that limit free expression so long as the limits are reasonable and can be justified in a free and democratic society. Hate speech, which refers to the advocacy and indictment of genocide or violence against a particular defined racial, ethnic, gender, sexual, religious, and other identifiable group. So any immutable thing, they can say you can't say that, which they don't want to hurt people's feelings. And obscenity, a broad term referring to, among other things, literature that is unreasonable, dangerous, or intensely inappropriate to society at large, such as child pornography or fraudulent medication intended to promote sexual virality, are just two examples, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So they have a clause that the government can shut down what you say. So just think, they're talking about misinformation, disinformation. They have something in there about medical they could shut down. And you don't think they're going to try and use that to some of these people? They can arrest people for wrongthink. It is legal to arrest people for wrongthink in Canada. So just remember, when these protesters are going out there doing what they're doing so at their own risk. And they've already set this up. And, the left has this language, but they're saying that there's white supremacists and extremists there. That is setting it up for they can arrest these people under that reasonable clause and get them out of there and basically put the whole entire group together and lump them all together, which is what they're trying to do. So overall, good luck to the truckers. They're making it difficult for them to get there. Trudeau's not going to be there to hear it. They're basically moving all the PMs, but keep it peaceful. Don't be stupid. The last thing we need is for them to start lying again about an insurrection and some dumb shit, because the left, all they have is hyperbole and hypocrisy. They have nothing more. It's hyperbole and hypocrisy. That is all the left has as their weapons. They use them well. They use them in unison, but they have nothing more. They never have facts. They never have anything like that on their side. So overall, this is a good thing that's going on Parliament Hill. It's a good thing with the truckers, a good thing with the rally. Keep it peaceful. Don't be stupid. If there's a Fed there trying to incite violence, get them the fuck out of there. Don't listen to them. If there are any white nationalist morons, get them out of there somehow. Don't listen to them. Extremism, same thing. Get them out of there. We don't need morons like that at these types of things. And if something is going on, move away. Move away. If something's about to start, move away. Go get a cop yourself. Help them out and say, hey, these idiots are starting to start stuff. Go arrest them. Get them out of our rally. We don't need them. Do the right thing there. Be smart, Canada. And thank you for fighting for freedom. Keep doing it because someone's got to. We got to, we're in endemic mode now. They still calling it a pandemic. We're in endemic mode. The governments need to all realize that. We need to shut down this word pandemic because it's an endemic at this point, and they need to relinquish their power. And keep protesting until they do. That's all we can do. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Again, like, follow, share, subscribe, rate 5 stars, spread word of mouth, social media. Go search the Alex Cuesta Show. You can find us anywhere there. And I appreciate you guys for listening. I will talk to everyone Monday. Have a great weekend.